Director under President Reagan. A very good afternoon to you. Thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon.
Let's start with the bigger picture on this. Was there a starting point where the president was correct to at least try and rebalance certain things when it came to trade?
Well, there's a huge problem of imbalance, but it is not the result of bad trade deals or NAFTA or the WTO or what the USTR was negotiating. This has been going on for 30 years. We've actually had 43 straight years of large and growing current account deficits. That's a monetary issue. It's due to the kind of policy we've had from the Fed and the fact that we've inflated our costs, our prices, and our wages much more rapidly than some of the competitors in the world like China and the others. That's what's created this deficit. So a trade war is not going to solve it. If he wants to solve it, he needs to stop talking about tariffs and call up the Fed and tell them, let interest rates find the right level, and we'll begin to adjust this problem over time. Right now, I would say that we have an absurd policy, dangerous, stupid, the worst that I've seen since my whole career started in 1970 under Nixon, and he did some crazy things.
And yet the market is marching to new highs.
Well, the market marches to new highs until it doesn't. The market basically fears nothing except maybe a central banker might look at them cross-eyed, but central bankers are too chicken to do it. Now, the fact is, we are heading to a massive trade war in the world because Trump doesn't know what he's doing at all. He's making it up. He's a hopeless protectionist with a 17th century view of the world. There is no tariff problem in the world. The average tariff in the world today is 2%. It's nothing. The U.S. is 1.7.
But it's fair to say, David, irrelevant of whether he focuses too much on the trade deficit as a tool to explain to his base why he's doing that. If we ignore that, it is fair to say that it tends to be emerging markets that place more tariffs than developed markets, and China once was a small emerging market, no longer is. The terms of trade with a country like that do need to be rebalanced somewhat compared to 20 years ago.
I doubt it, because in 1990, when they decided to go the export route, their average tariff was about 30%. The average tariff in China today is 3.5%. It's not an issue. What they're objecting to is China's policy of no ticky, no washi. In other words, if you want to come to China and do business, you have to be in a joint venture and share your technology. Well, I say, so what? If somebody wants to go to China so they can come on CNBC and brag that they're in a growth market, then they ought to put up with the local regulations. But don't start a trade war and throw the soybean farmer under the bus because some big business lobby in Washington is whining, about China's terms of business. This is crony capitalist crybaby stuff like I haven't seen in my entire career.
You can make a similar case, though, that the current account deficit, which does seem to bother you, is also a non-event. Any emergency that's been ongoing for 43 years is not an emergency. We import savings. We spend the money on stuff from overseas. That's not necessarily a system that has to get out of whack all that.
Yes, it does. It's not sustainable. We don't import savings. We export dollars that no one wants. They buy up dollars, warehouse our bonds and our excess debt. And
that's the savings that we import.
No, those aren't savings. Those are manufactured, credits by their central banks. It's not sustainable, and that's why you have Trump today. But these policies gave us Trump. Wall Street loves Trump. More power to them.
But to Mike's point,
yeah.
When you have been warning about all of these problems for a while, the Fed, the bubble, the deficits, and yet we're in going 9.5 years
of expansion.
We had rally and expansion.
Well, we had 10 years of rally in the 1990s. We had 7 years of rally before the greatest financial crisis in history. Bubble finance has a cycle that expands and everything gets levitated and asset values get inflated for 6, 7, 8 years running. Pretty soon everybody thinks, that this time is different and the, trees will grow to the sky, and they don't. There is going to be some event that we can't predict, no one can predict, but it will happen. I was sitting here in October 2007, and it was Goldilocks time. There was nothing that could go wrong. 18 months later, the stock market was down 55%.
Sure, there's always economic cycles. David, I just want to come back to something.
But that's the point.
But I just want to come back to something I think that you said in the middle of that, which is that the reason I think you said that the president's pursuing these trade policies is because of crony capitalism. But the vast majority of CEOs, business leaders that come on CNBC are against his trade policies. So I don't see how you can, whether it's the right tact or not, I don't see how you can
talking about this
argue that
it is.
No, this is the public posture, but who is doing all the bill of particulars about their trade policies? If I go to China, I have to pay, they pay a lower royalty than I get from or they're stealing my patents. This is trade nannyism out of Washington. And if some company has got a beef about China stealing their patents, they ought to enforce their patents in courts all around the world. It's not Washington's business to pick and choose, and they're throwing everybody under the bus. In other words, this isn't just getting started. And the people that go in the aisles of Walmart are going to be paying through the nose for a trade policy that isn't going to help them, it's going to hurt them. China is targeting its retaliation to red states, to farmers and to manufacturing and Rust Belt areas. They're not stupid, and this will get out of hand because it's a billiard ball table of 17 trillion of global trade that is so complex that no one knows all the ins and outs and the intricacies, and you can't stop it once it gets started.
Always good to get your thoughts, sir. David Stockman, thank you. With another warning, this time on trade.
What was it that
from the Reagan
Carl
administration.
David said? That he'd bring
he
his
always
A
brings
game?
the fire.
Brings the fire. He does.
True.
David, great to see you.